I didn't think he'd hear me. That's what I need everyone to understand first. It was a joke. A throwaway comment made to get laughs from people I was trying to impress. A bit of humor at his expense that I genuinely believed was harmless because I thought he was across the room, out of earshot, not paying attention to my conversation. I was wrong about all of that. We were at a party, one of those big house parties that a mutual friend throws a few times a year, where everyone brings someone, and the place is packed with people you know and people you don't. My boyfriend, his name is Ezra, and I had arrived together like we always did. Been dating for almost 2 years. Comfortable, stable. The kind of relationship where you don't think too hard about whether you're still trying to impress each other because you've settled into routine. I was talking to a group of people I didn't know well. Acquaintances of acquaintances. The kind of social situation where you're performing a bit, trying to be funny and interesting, wanting to make a good impression on strangers who might become friends. We were talking about relationships, the usual party conversation about dating and compatibility and what makes people good matches or bad matches. "You guys look cute together," one woman said, gesturing vaguely in Ezra's direction, where he'd been standing last time I looked. "How long have you been dating?" "Almost 2 years," I said. Then, because I wanted the laugh, because I was feeling confident, because I thought it would be funny. "Yeah, I'm basically a 10 carrying a 2. But what can you do? Love is blind, right?" They laughed. Multiple people laughed. That validating social laugh that makes you feel clever and funny, and like you've said the right thing. That encouraged me. Made me think I was being entertaining instead of cruel. Made me feel like I'd landed a good joke instead of revealed something terrible about my character. "A 10 carrying a 2, that's hilarious," one guy said. "I feel that. We've all dated down at some point. Right? Like, objectively, I could do better looks-wise. But he's sweet, so I'm making it work. It's charity, basically. I'm doing humanitarian work over here." More laughs, more validation, more encouragement that this was funny and acceptable rather than horrific. What I didn't realize, what I didn't notice in my performance for strangers, was that Ezra had come up behind me during this conversation, had heard at least the last part, had heard me call myself a 10 carrying his 2, had heard me say I could do better, had heard me describe being with him as charity work, had heard me get laughs at his expense from people he didn't even know, had heard all of it, was standing there processing what his girlfriend had just said about him to strangers at a party. I turned around and saw him, just standing there, face completely neutral, not angry that I could see, not hurt in an obvious way, just calm. That scary kind of calm where someone has heard something that fundamentally changed how they see you, and they're deciding what to do with that information. "Ezra, hey, how long have you been standing there?" "Long enough," he said, voice even, measured. "Long enough to hear that you're a 10 carrying a 2. Long enough to hear about your charity work. Long enough to understand how you really see our relationship." The group I'd been talking to got immediately awkward, people looking away, someone muttering about needing another drink, the social dynamic shifting instantly from fun party banter to uncomfortable confrontation that nobody wanted to witness. They dispersed within seconds, leaving me standing there with Ezra, who was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "It was just a joke," I said quickly. "Just party humor. I was just trying to be funny. You know I don't actually think that. Everyone makes jokes like that about their partners. It doesn't mean anything. You called yourself a 10 and me a 2. You said you could do better. You described being with me as charity. You got laughs by putting me down in front of strangers. That's what you actually said. That's what actually happened. Saying it was a joke doesn't change what you revealed about how you see me." I was exaggerating for effect. It's not literal. Obviously, I don't literally think I'm a 10 and you're a 2. It's just party conversation, social humor. People say things at parties they don't actually mean. But you do mean it. Maybe not the exact numbers, maybe not the specific phrasing, but the core of it, that you think you're more attractive than me, that you think you're settling, that you see our relationship as you doing me a favor, rather than us being equals. You mean that. Otherwise you wouldn't have said it. Otherwise it wouldn't have gotten the laugh. The joke only works if there's truth underneath it. He was right. The joke had only worked because there was truth in it. Because on some level I did think I was more attractive than him. Did think I could probably do better if I tried. Did see our relationship as unbalanced in my favor. I just never articulated it so bluntly before. Never said it out loud where he could hear. Never been confronted with how cruel that perspective actually was when voiced. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. It was mean. I was being thoughtless. But you know I care about you. You know I want to be with you. A stupid joke at a party doesn't change 2 years together. Doesn't it, though? Now I know that when you look at me, you see a 2 that you're carrying. Now I know that you think you're doing charity work by being with me. Now I know you're embarrassed enough by the attractiveness gap you perceive that you make jokes about it to strangers. That changes everything. That changes how I see you. That changes how I see us. So what are you saying? You're going to break up with me over a joke? I'm saying I need to think. I need to process the fact that my girlfriend thinks she's too attractive for me and considers being with me a favor. I need to decide if I want to be with someone who sees our relationship that way, who sees me that way. So I'm going to leave this party, and you can stay or go, but I need space from you right now. He turned and walked toward the door. Just walked away. Left me standing in the middle of the party processing what had just happened. Processing that a joke I thought was harmless had potentially ended my relationship. Processing that words I'd said for laughs had revealed something I didn't know Ezra would find unforgivable. He didn't come home that night. We didn't live together, but he usually stayed over on weekends. Instead, nothing. No text saying where he was. No call to talk it through. Just silence. Just him making good on his statement that he needed space. Just him not coming home in a way that made it very clear how serious this was. I texted him around midnight. Can we please talk about this? I'm really sorry. It was a stupid joke. Please don't let this ruin what we have. No response. I texted again in the morning. I know you're mad and you have every right to be, but please don't shut me out. Let me apologize properly. Let me explain. Please. Still no response. I called Sunday afternoon, straight to voicemail. Either his phone was off or he was declining my calls. Either way, the message was clear. He wasn't ready to talk. Wasn't ready to hear my apologies or explanations. Needed more time to process what I'd said and what it meant. Monday evening, after 2 days of complete silence, I finally got a text. I've been thinking about what you said at the party, about the joke, about what it revealed. We need to talk. Can you come to my place tomorrow after work? The text was formal, distant, not angry but not warm either, just informational, just setting a meeting time like we were colleagues instead of people who'd been together for 2 years. The tone told me this wasn't going to be a conversation where I apologized and he forgave me and we moved on. This was going to be something bigger, something more final. I showed up at his apartment Tuesday evening, knocked instead of using my key like I normally would have without thinking about it. Waited for him to let me in instead of just walking in like I'd done dozens of times before. The small gestures of distance felt symbolic and intentional. Felt like we were already breaking up, even though the official conversation hadn't started yet. Felt like the relationship was over, and we were just going through the formality of making it verbal and final. He let me in after a long pause, longer than necessary, like he needed a moment to prepare himself for this conversation. Offered me water with the careful politeness you'd show a visitor rather than someone you'd been intimate with for 2 years. We sat on his couch with more deliberate space between us than usual. much more space than we'd normally sit. The physical distance matched and reinforced the emotional distance I could feel, building like a wall between us. "I've spent 2 full days thinking about what you said," Ezra started, voice calm, measured, like he'd rehearsed this, like he'd thought through exactly what he wanted to say and how he wanted to say it. "About you being a 10 carrying a 2, about your charity work, about how you could do better looks-wise, about your humanitarian efforts." And I realized something during all that thinking, something important. I realized that I believe you. I think you genuinely do see yourself as significantly more attractive than me. I think you genuinely do feel like you're settling for less than you deserve. I think you genuinely do see our relationship as fundamentally unbalanced in your favor. And once I believed that you actually think those things, once I accepted that this is really how you view me and us, I couldn't unbelieve it. I can't unknow that that's how you see me. That knowledge is permanent. It's changed everything. It was just a joke, exaggerated for laughs, hyperbole for social effect, not how I actually feel about you or us. But it was how you actually feel. Maybe not as extreme or literal as you said it at the party. Maybe not literally a perfect 10 carrying a literal 2. But the basic premise, that there's a significant attractiveness disparity between us, and you're on the much better side of it, that's real. That's what you actually think. That's your genuine perspective that slipped out when you wanted to entertain strangers and get laughs. And now I know it. Now I can't unknow it. And I can't be with someone who thinks they're too good for me. I can't be in a relationship where my partner sees being with me as lowering their standards. I can't stay with someone who views our relationship through the lens of charity and sacrifice rather than mutual benefit and equal partnership. I don't think I'm too good for you. That's not... You said you're carrying me. You explicitly said you could do better. You described being with me as charity work, humanitarian work. Those are your literal words, your joke, your perspective that you articulated to strangers for laughs. And now I have to decide if I want to be with someone who sees me that way. If I want to be in a relationship where my partner thinks she's settling for someone beneath her standards, where I'm the less attractive one by such a significant margin that it's joke-worthy at parties, where she's apparently embarrassed enough by the perceived gap to make it public conversation with people we don't even know well. I'm not embarrassed by you. I love you. I want to be with you. One stupid comment at a party doesn't change 2 years together, doesn't erase everything we've built, doesn't mean I don't value you or appreciate you or want to be with you. But it does change how I feel about myself in this relationship. It's changed everything for me. Before Saturday night at that party, I thought we were equals. I thought we both valued each other roughly equally. I thought we saw each other as well matched. I thought our attractiveness levels were roughly comparable, maybe not identical, but close enough that neither of us felt like we were settling or sacrificing. Now I know that in your mind, there's apparently a massive gap, an 8-point gap on a 10-point scale. That you see yourself as doing me this enormous favor by being with me. That you think you're carrying me through this relationship like I'm dead weight you're obligated to drag along. And I can't unknow that. It's fundamentally changed how I see everything between us, changed how I interpret our entire history together. You're overreacting. It was one joke, one careless moment where I said something stupid for laughs. Everyone says dumb things sometimes. Everyone makes mistakes in what they say. It doesn't define how I actually feel. It's not overreacting to leave someone who publicly mocks you. It's not overreacting to end a relationship when you discover your partner sees you as a burden they're generously carrying. It's not overreacting to recognize that someone's joke revealed their true perspective. And it is their true perspective. Jokes don't come from nowhere. Humor reveals what we actually think. You made that joke because on some level you believe it's true. You called yourself a 10 carrying a 2 because that's genuinely how you see our dynamic. And I deserve better than that. I deserve to be with someone who doesn't think they're doing me a favor, who doesn't see being with me as settling, who doesn't view our relationship through the lens of charitable obligation. So you're breaking up with me. You're ending our 2-year relationship over a joke I made at a party, over a few careless words, over one stupid moment. I'm ending our relationship because you revealed how you actually see me, how you actually see us, because you showed me something about your perspective that I can't unsee or unhear, because you demonstrated that you think you're significantly more attractive than me, and that being with me represents settling on your part. And I deserve equality. I deserve to be valued. I deserve to be with someone who sees being with me as winning rather than sacrificing. And you deserve to be with someone you actually think is good enough for you, someone you don't have to carry, someone who meets your standards so you don't feel like you're doing charity work, someone you think is an actual 10 instead of a disappointing 2. Ezra, please, don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, deeply sorry. I'll never say anything like that again. I'll be more careful with my words. I'll think before I speak. I'll protect you instead of mocking you. Please give me another chance to be better, to do better, to show you that I value you. It's not about you being more careful with your words going forward. It's not about you learning to hide your real perspective better. It's about what the words revealed about your actual feelings and beliefs. You can't unsay it. I can't unhear it. We can't go back to, before I knew you think you're a 10 carrying a 2. That knowledge is permanent. It's in my head forever now. It's changed how I see myself in this relationship. Changed how I see you. Changed everything. And I won't stay in a relationship where I'm the pity project, where I'm the charitable cause, where I'm the weight being carried. I have too much self-respect for that. He was firm, completely decided. This wasn't him being emotional or reactive or making a rash decision in anger. This was him having spent 2 solid days thinking it through carefully and arriving at a clear conclusion. This was him valuing himself enough to leave someone who didn't value him equally or appropriately. This was him choosing self-respect over a relationship that had apparently been fundamentally unbalanced in ways I'd been too selfish or oblivious to notice or care about until it cost me everything. I loved you, I said, using past tense already, accepting on some level that this was really happening and couldn't be stopped. I loved you too, I really did, but love isn't enough when respect isn't there, when equality isn't there, when one person sees themselves as doing the other person this enormous favor just by being in the relationship. I need more than that. I deserve more than that. And honestly, you deserve to find your actual 10, someone you think is on your level, instead of carrying a 2 who apparently doesn't meet your standards. He was using my words against me, throwing my exact phrasing back to show how ugly it sounded when said directly and seriously instead of disguised as humor. How cruel the perspective was when articulated plainly rather than couched in the protective covering of a joke. How fundamentally disrespectful it was to see your partner that way, regardless of whether you said it at a party or kept it quiet in your head. I should go, I said. No point prolonging this. No point arguing when his mind was clearly made up. No point trying to convince someone to stay when they'd already decided you don't value them enough to deserve them. No point fighting for a relationship I'd destroyed with my own words. Yeah, you should. And I'd appreciate it if you gave me space going forward. Real space. Don't text or call trying to change my mind. Don't show up here hoping to talk me out of this. Don't ask mutual friends to intervene or pass messages. Don't try to convince me this was an overreaction or a misunderstanding. I've made my decision. I've thought it through carefully. I'm done being carried. I'm done being someone's charitable obligation. I'm dropping the weight, all of it. Dropping the weight, calling me weight he was carrying even though I'd been the one who said I was carrying him. Using my own language to describe leaving me. Making it clear that if I saw him as burden, he now saw me as burden too. That if I thought I was doing him a favor by being with him, he was now doing himself a favor by leaving me. that he'd internalized my perspective and flipped it, showing that being with someone who sees you as inferior is its own kind of weight worth dropping. I left his apartment, left with the understanding that I'd destroyed a good relationship with one careless joke, that I'd revealed something about myself that made me unlovable to someone who'd loved me, that I'd valued the laugh from strangers more than the dignity of my partner, that I'd traded 2 years for 10 seconds of feeling clever. The first few weeks after the breakup were brutal, absolutely brutal. I kept replaying the party, kept hearing myself say those words, kept seeing Ezra's face when he realized I'd been talking about him, kept wishing I could take it back, kept understanding that even if I could, the damage was done, the perspective was revealed. The truth about how I saw him was out there and couldn't be taken back. I tried reaching out a few times despite his request for space, sent texts apologizing, explaining, trying to convince him I didn't really think that way, that it was just performance, just social humor gone wrong. He responded once, "Stop, I asked for space. Respect that at least, since you didn't respect me enough not to mock me at a party." His social media went quiet about us. No photos of us together anymore. No relationship status. Just him posting normal life stuff without any evidence I'd ever existed. Meanwhile, mutual friends were clearly aware something had happened, asking careful questions, trying to figure out what went wrong, and I couldn't tell them the truth. Couldn't admit I'd called my boyfriend a 2 and gotten dumped for it. Couldn't reveal that I'd been the villain in our breakup story. One friend, Raina, who'd been friends with both of us but was closer to Ezra, finally asked me directly what happened. We were getting coffee, catching up, and she brought it up carefully. "So I heard you and Ezra broke up. He didn't give me details, just said it was over and he didn't want to talk about it. What happened?" I considered lying, considered giving some vague answer about growing apart or wanting different things. But I was tired of carrying the secret, tired of being the only one who knew how badly I'd messed up. I made a joke at a party, called myself a 10 carrying a 2. He heard me, broke up with me 2 days later. Raina was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, "You said that? About Ezra? At a party where he could hear you?" I didn't think he could hear me. I was trying to get laughs from some people I was talking to. It was supposed to be funny, party humor, not serious. But it was serious. Even if you meant it as a joke, you said something really cruel about someone you were supposed to care about. You reduced him to a number, called being with him charity, made strangers laugh at his expense. Of course he left. What else was he supposed to do? Stay with someone who thinks they're settling? I don't think I'm settling. But you do. Otherwise you wouldn't have said it. Jokes reveal truth. Humor comes from somewhere real. And you revealed that you see yourself as more attractive than him by such a margin that it's laugh-worthy. That's not something you can take back. That's not something he can unhear. That's relationship-ending revelation. Everyone thinks they're more attractive than their partner sometimes. Everyone has moments where they wonder if they could do better. It's normal. Human nature. I just said it out loud. No, not everyone thinks that. And the people who do have enough respect for their partner, not to say it at parties for laughs. You chose the laugh over his dignity. You chose impressing strangers over protecting him. You chose to be cruel because you thought it would be funny. And you're paying the price for that choice. She was right. And having a friend confirm that I'd been wrong, that Ezra's reaction was justified, that my behavior was indefensible, made it worse somehow, made it clear that this wasn't him being oversensitive. This was me being cruel and getting appropriate consequences. "Do you think he'll ever forgive me?" I asked, knowing the answer, but hoping anyway. "I don't know. Maybe eventually. But forgiveness doesn't mean he'll take you back, doesn't mean he'll want to be with you again. You showed him how you really see him. That's not something you can undo with apologies. That's permanent knowledge that changed everything. Denson, Ziasakipa Kaniesin, Densupa Antafatansan, N. 3 months after the breakup, I saw Ezra at another party. Same friend group hosting. Same type of big house party event with too many people and too much alcohol and that specific social energy. Impossible to completely avoid each other when you have overlapping mutual social circles and shared friend groups. I'd been dreading this inevitable moment, dreading running into him. Didn't know if he'd ignore me completely or confront me or what would happen. Didn't know how I'd react to seeing him for the first time since that conversation in his apartment where he'd ended everything. He was talking to someone when I spotted him across the room. A woman I didn't recognize from our social circle. They looked comfortable together. Easy, natural. That effortless kind of physical proximity that suggests intimacy and familiarity. The way we used to look before, I ruined it with careless cruelty disguised as humor. And she was beautiful. Objectively, genuinely, strikingly beautiful. The kind of woman who would be called a 10 by anyone's standards or metrics. Tall, stylish, confident body language, perfect smile. The kind of attractive that makes other people notice and take second looks. And he was with her, dating her based on the body language, the way they stood close, the casual touches, the comfortable dynamic. Had moved on to someone who actually matched whatever standard I'd implied he didn't meet, had found someone who saw him as equal, or maybe even thought she was lucky to be with him instead of doing him a favor. I watched them for several minutes from across the room, couldn't help myself, couldn't look away even though it hurt, watched him laugh at something she said, that genuine laugh he used to reserve for when I said something actually funny. Watched her touch his arm affectionately in that possessive but casual way that marks territory and intimacy. Watched them have the easy flowing dynamic that we'd had for the first year and a half before I started taking him for granted. Before I started seeing him as someone I was settling for instead of someone I was lucky to be with. And I felt it all at once, the jealousy burning in my chest, the regret threatening to choke me, the understanding, sharp and painful, that I'd lost something genuinely good and he'd found something genuinely better. That I'd thrown away a person who loved me because I couldn't keep my ego and my mouth under control for one night at a party. He saw me eventually. Our eyes met across the crowded room. Made direct eye contact for several long seconds. No anger in his expression. No hurt that I could detect or read. Just acknowledgement. Just recognition that I was there and he was aware of my presence. Maybe a hint of something else. Satisfaction, relief, indifference. Hard to tell from distance. Then he deliberately, intentionally turned back to the woman he was with and continued their conversation. Made a choice in that moment to focus on her instead of engaging with me in any way. Made it absolutely clear through that simple action that I was past. That he'd moved on completely. That whatever we'd had was over and finished, and not something he was interested in revisiting or discussing or even acknowledging beyond basic social courtesy of eye contact. The woman noticed the exchange, noticed him looking at me, said something to him, asking about me probably, asking who I was or why I was staring. He said something brief in response. She looked at me then with what I could only describe as assessment, sizing me up, figuring out who I was in relation to him. Then she smiled slightly, not mean, not triumphant, just confident, and moved closer to him, claimed him with that movement, made it clear through body language that he was hers now and I had no stake anymore. And she was right, he was hers. I'd forfeited any claim when I made him into a joke for strangers. I couldn't stand it, couldn't handle watching him happy and comfortable with someone else, couldn't bear seeing him with someone who he didn't have to carry, someone who probably valued him and respected him and would never make jokes about attractiveness gaps at parties, someone who saw him as prize rather than project, someone who understood she was lucky instead of thinking she was charitable. left the party within 20 minutes of arriving, made some excuse to the host about not feeling well, fled to my car and sat there for 10 minutes just processing what I'd seen. Processing that he'd upgraded, that he'd found someone better, that he'd dropped my weight and found someone worth carrying, or more accurately, someone who didn't need carrying because she saw him as equal. Raina texted me later that night after I'd gotten home. "Saw you left early. You okay? Seemed like you took off pretty fast." "Who was the woman with Ezra?" She didn't respond immediately. Long pause. Then, "Her name is Yara. They met through work. She's in a related industry, crossed paths at some professional event or networking thing. Been dating for like a month, maybe 5 weeks. She's really nice. Like genuinely nice person, not just surface level nice. They seem really good together, really well matched. He seems happy, really happy, happier than I remember him being. She's beautiful." Another pause. Then, "Yeah, she is. And more importantly, she doesn't call him a two. She doesn't make jokes about carrying him. She doesn't see being with him as charity work. So there's that. So there's the actual important difference." The dig was intentional, pointed, deliberate. Raina making sure I understood that Ezra had upgraded not just in conventional attractiveness, but in treatment, in respect, in being valued. That he'd found someone who appreciated him properly instead of someone who mocked him publicly. That he'd dropped the weight, my cruelty, my complete lack of respect, and found someone better in all the ways that actually matter in a relationship. I get it. I messed up. I lost him. I deserve to watch him be happy with someone else. You do deserve that, but not as punishment, as consequence. You revealed you didn't value him. He chose to be with someone who does. That's not him punishing you. That's him valuing himself. There's a difference. She was right. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't him trying to make me jealous. This was him moving on to someone better suited. Someone who saw him clearly instead of through the distorted lens of superiority and charity. Someone who thought being with him was lucky instead of settling. Default the tao. It's been 8 months since the party. 8 months since I made a joke that cost me a 2-year relationship. 8 months since I revealed how I really saw my boyfriend and lost him because of it. 8 months of living with consequences that I deserve. 8 months of understanding that some words can't be taken back, and some damage can't be repaired, and some relationships can't survive, the truth being spoken out loud. I'm still single. Dated a bit, but nothing serious or meaningful. Nothing that compared even remotely to what I had with Ezra before I destroyed it with careless cruelty. A few first dates that went nowhere. A few second dates that fizzled. Nothing that developed into anything real because I'm different now and potential partners can sense it. Can sense that I'm carrying regret. Can sense that I'm comparing them to someone I lost. Can sense that I learned something hard and I'm still processing it. And I've noticed something significant in my dating life now. I'm hyper-aware of how I think about people. Constantly conscious of whether I see myself as better than them in any way. More careful about the jokes I make and the perspectives they reveal. More understanding that how you see your partner fundamentally matters. That thinking you're doing someone a favor by being with them poisons the relationship, even if you never say it out loud. That seeing yourself as superior destroys intimacy, even if you keep that view private. That relationships require actual equality and mutual respect, not one person graciously lowering themselves to be with someone they consider beneath them. I've caught myself several times on dates starting to think I could do better than this person, and immediately stopping that thought, recognizing it as the toxic thinking that cost me Ezra, refusing to let it take root. Because I understand now that could do better is a relationship killer. That ranking your partner against hypothetical alternatives means you're not actually present in the relationship you have. That constantly evaluating whether someone meets your standards means you don't actually value them as a person. Ezra is still with Yara, still happy based on everything I see on social media. And yes, I still check occasionally, even though I know I shouldn't, even though it hurts every single time. And here through mutual friends who haven't completely cut me off. They moved in together recently, got a place in the neighborhood they both wanted, look settled and stable and serious, look like two people who value each other appropriately and equally, look like two people who see each other as partners rather than one person doing the other a favor. Look like what Ezra and I could have looked like if I'd valued him properly instead of seeing him as charity work. I see them sometimes at social events we both still get invited to. They're always cordial but distinctly distant, polite but boundaried in that way that makes it clear we're acquaintances now, not friends, and certainly not anything more. Ezra doesn't ignore me, but he doesn't engage beyond basic social pleasantries either. Hey, how are you? Good to see you, and then moving on immediately to talk to literally anyone else. And Yara is always friendly in that specific way that tells me she knows exactly what I did. Knows I called him a 2. Knows I thought I was too good for him. Knows I made jokes about carrying him. Knows I'm the ex who didn't appreciate what she had until she lost it, and now has to watch him be happy with someone who does appreciate him. She's never mean about it, never rude or hostile or competitive, just friendly in a way that makes it clear she won and she knows it, and she doesn't need to rub it in because the situation speaks for itself. I think about that party constantly. Think about those specific few seconds where I chose the laugh over his dignity. Think about that moment where I valued impressing strangers more than I valued protecting someone I claimed to love. Think about how different things would be if I'd just kept my mouth shut for once, if I'd valued him more than I valued being perceived as funny or clever or desirable. If I'd seen him as an equal partner instead of someone I was generously carrying despite them not meeting my standards. If I'd been a better person who didn't think ranking people on attractiveness scales was acceptable or amusing. The joke was supposed to be, I'm a 10 carrying a 2. The punchline was supposed to be the attractiveness gap between us. The humor was supposed to come from me, publicly admitting to settling for someone beneath my standards. The laugh was supposed to validate my superiority. The joke was supposed to make me seem funny and honest and self-aware about dating dynamics. But the real punchline came later. Came days later when he broke up with me. Came when he dropped the weight I'd joked about carrying. Came when he left someone who saw him as burden instead of blessing. Came when he found someone who saw him as prize instead of project. Came when I realized that calling yourself a 10 doesn't actually make you one, especially when you treat people like they're numbers to be ranked and compared rather than humans to be valued and respected. Came when I understood that the cruelest people are often the ones who think their cruelty is justified by their own superiority. He dropped the weight. He literally told me he was dropping the weight. And in doing so, in that specific word choice, he showed me something I'm still processing. Showed me that the weight wasn't him. Wasn't his supposed inadequacy or unattractiveness. Wasn't the imaginary gap between his appearance and mine. The real weight was me. My cruelty disguised as humor. My superiority disguised as honesty. My complete and total lack of respect for someone who'd spent 2 years caring about me and supporting me and being good to me. My treating him like a numerical rating instead of a person. That was the actual weight, and he was absolutely right to drop it. I thought I was a 10 carrying a 2. I thought I was doing him this enormous favor by being with him despite him not meeting my standards. I thought the joke was funny because it was true, because there really was a gap and I was really on the better side of it. But he showed me that someone who makes those jokes is actually the 2. Someone who ranks their partner and finds them wanting is actually the one who's unworthy. Someone who sees relationships as charitable obligations is actually the burden, and he upgraded to his actual 10. Someone who values him, respects him, appreciates him, sees being with him as winning rather than settling. 8 months later, and I'm still learning this lesson, still understanding that attractiveness is more than physical features, still recognizing that being a good partner matters more than being conventionally attractive, still processing that I lost someone good because I thought I was better than him when really he was better than me in all the ways that actually matter.